The week before my first marathon, I cried. And it wasn't just a little whimper. It was a big, ugly, what the hell am I doing kind of cry. The self-doubt, the fear, the anxiety, the voices were so loud. The thought of doing a marathon, 26.2 miles, without stopping, without dying, that was impossible. And it was through the tears that it uncovered this story that I keep telling myself, that no one shows up for me, and that I'll have no one to hug when I cross that finish line. But somehow, somewhere, I did that marathon, and then another, and then another. And then I did a marathon one weekend and a 50K ultra marathon the next weekend. And it was through this that it gave me the strength and confidence to do a 140.6 mile Ironman triathlon. Run my own company, and raise 3 kids. And the thing I learned every single time I did these kind of hard things is that the tough stuff allows the soft stuff to surface. And I came face to face with a choice. How am I going to show up, and what am I going to learn? Every one of us is doing hard things. And even if you're 10 years old and you and your twin brother are going to go take your black belt test, and you know that if you fail that test, you have to wait a year to retake it. That's really tough. Or you could have finished up your double master's, quit your high-paying job, buy an RV, and then decide that I'm going to build my company around my life core values. That's amazingly impossible. Or you could be where I am today. And that is 14 months ago, my father was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And I walked through that whole process with him to near complete remission. I see some of you nodding. Yeah, we're all doing tough stuff. But when did we become so afraid of the impossible? We started to build up physical walls, mental walls, stone by stone, made up of fear, doubt, excuses. And then we look at ourselves, and suddenly we're nowhere close to the person we once were or the person we wanted to become. And when you observe that about yourself, then it kind of gets really scary. So now, I want you to think about your own bucket list. And I want you to take one thing off that list, and I want you to hold it. And when you have that thought in your mind, I want you to raise your hand up. Really, raise your hand up. What does success look like? Why do you want it so badly? And what's keeping you from going after it? The cycle of anything impossible has these 5 phases. Firstly, you're going to set your goal, and you're going to say, that's where I'm going. Secondly, you're gonna fall down, and it's gonna feel like failure, and you're gonna say, this is impossible. Thirdly, you're gonna dust yourself off, and you're gonna say, maybe I can give this a try. Fourthly, you're gonna stay present in the moment, and you're gonna, little by little, start doing it. Lastly, you're going to look up and you're going to say, yes, I did it. So let me tell you a little bit about my own wrestle with the impossible. 3 years ago, I was standing on the sideline of my kids' soccer match, and another dad is standing there in his Ironman jacket. And I was like, whoa, dude, what's that all about? And he said, this is the jacket from when I did my first Ironman. That's possible, but impossible for me because I can't swim and I have a huge fear of drowning. So no, can't do that. He said, meet me at the pool next week and I'm going to show you how to swim. And it was through his optimism where he said, Peter, you can totally do this, that I started to believe it was possible. So I signed up for an Ironman. Of course, I failed miserably, a lot. I mean, I'm an adult learning how to swim for the first time. And just learning how to breathe took me an entire month. And every time I showed up at the pool, it was so frustrating. But I made a choice to believe in myself. And I made that choice every single day. And it was challenging even on the good days. But on the bad days, raining, dark, really tough. When we have really hard, heavy things, and we start to accept that situation, that's when something can become lighter. And so I came up with a mantra, and I write this mantra on my hand every time before I do a marathon. And it says, light, which stands for light and little effort. Because this is the place where I want my mind to be whenever I'm doing something really difficult. When we're all tense, when we're stressed out, we can't be creative. We can't do our best work. And we certainly cannot run fast. 8 weeks before the Ironman, at the peak of my training, I got sick, really sick. 104-degree temperature, multiple trips to the ER. The doctor diagnosed me with pneumonia. And the doctor said it would take 3 to 6 months to recover. I was like, that's not really going to work with my training schedule. I've got an Ironman in 8 weeks. I was so upset. I thought the pneumonia was going to totally derail my Ironman. I thought all this training was going to be for nothing. So rather than stay upset, I decided to embrace my pneumonia. And I gave it a name. Called it my parachute. And it's my body's way of telling me to slow down and rest. In my panic, I had forgotten that I had already done all the hard work, nearly 500 workouts in the last year. My body was ready. It just needed to rest and get stronger. Resilience is how we recharge. not how we endure. The day before Ironman Arizona, they'd have this practice swim. It's a mini course. A couple thousand triathletes can just jump in the water and practice swim. It was incredibly intimidating. These triathletes, many of them have Ironman tattoos on their bodies. This is clearly not their first race. And then there's me. So I jumped in the water and I swam 100 yards. And I nearly had a panic attack. It was so cold. My heart rate was totally jacked up. I couldn't breathe. So I had to flip over on my back and just float there and wait for my heart rate to come back down. It was so embarrassing. All these triathletes, they're swimming, and then there's me. I got out of the water a complete wreck. I picked up the phone, I called up my friend in tears, and I said, I cannot do this. I struggled to swim 400 yards, and tomorrow I have to swim 4,224 yards. I cannot do this. She told me, get back in the water and play and float on your back, because the last thing that you can feel coming out of the water today is fear. That night, it was a terrible night of sleep. All I could think about was the swim. They call the Ironman swim a human washing machine. 2,500 arms and legs thrashing in the water. You look down into the water, and it's pitch black, and it's cold, and it makes you shiver. And when you're swimming, people's hands are slapping your feet. Yes, they're touching you. And if you're not careful, these people will push you down and swim right over the top of you. So my coach, he said, it's a good thing you're having a meltdown, because now we can come up with a plan. And the plan was to swim and do swim drills for the first 500 yards. And the game plan worked. I got to the 500-yard marker, and stroke after stroke, I started to believe in myself. And I said, I'm doing this. Today, I'm going to be an Ironman. I said it over and over and over until I got done with that swim. The 2.4-mile swim was the hardest part for me. But it gave me the strength and the confidence to be able to do the 112-mile bike and then the 26.2-mile run. And as Billy Yang might say, a 140-mile race doesn't have to be your journey. But I think we can all agree that we can benefit by stepping outside what's familiar and comfortable just a bit. But maybe you're like me, pausing, afraid, intimidated. But we have to ask ourselves, why is it worth it? And what are we protecting? These chunks of rock that are falling off, what's underneath all this? The process of shedding our walls, why is it worth it? Now, I want you to grab that thought that you were thinking about earlier, and I want you to say, is it within reach? Look around the room. Everyone is reaching for something, and you are not alone. So what's going to be your next step? Your next mile? And what do you want the remaining journey of your life to be?